Welcome back, everybody, to the episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode number 126, dedicated to a man who on August 24th, 1922, became the first Philadelphia Philly to hit for the cycle, Mr. Cy Williams. And as always, thank you for sitting and downloading to the episode of the podcast. On today's episode, we talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs, about how this may be a very good time in college football for conference realignment. And Earl Thomas, he was on a short leash. And when you're on a short leash, you should know not to mess up. Well, I hope he learned his lesson. But first,
he's up in the pen right now. This is in the air to right field.
That hit,
back
baby.
It goes.
You knew that was gone.
Nando has done it again. Fernando Tatis Jr., a grand slam. And the Padres go on top 14-3.
That's what they
Two
used
home
to call
runs,
them.
7 RBIs for Fernando Tatis Jr. Unbelievable.
Let's get it special, y'all.
Tatis
special.
has just hit a grand slam, his second home run of the night, and the Padres have a 14-3 lead. We are watching is nothing short of amazing.
Nothing short of amazing. It's a great way to describe what it is like to watch Fernando Tatis Jr. play baseball. But that was not why I played that clip today, to kind of show what kind of player he is, how great he is, all of that stuff. No, that was not it. The score in this game, 10-3. The count in this at-bat, 3-0 count, 3 balls, 0 strikes. And in baseball, there are these things called unwritten rules. Don't run up the score. If it's a 3-0 count and your team's in a blowout, you don't swing. Things like that. Now, in Fernando Tatis Jr.'s eyes, I already have 1 home run. I have 3 RBIs. He may not know the stats just like that easily, but he knows the way that the game is being played. He knows how he is being played. And he knows there is a chance that on a 3-0 count, he might get his pitch. And that's exactly what happened. 3-0 count, he got his pitch, and bam, the rest is history. Knocked out the park, grand slam, 14-3 scored now, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, as a broadcaster said so well. And that's Fernando Tatis Jr. He's a great young talent. He's a great guy. And when I first saw the clip, it wasn't because of what he did, about how he was just showing off and how he was just utilizing his skills to score again. No, that wasn't it. It was people talking about these idiotic, unwritten rules in baseball. I mentioned the count earlier because apparently in baseball, which I know about unwritten rules in baseball, I'm not so well versed in them that when something happens in a game that I know about it. No, that's not me. 10-3 score, game's almost over, it's a blowout, 3-0 count. There's an unwritten rule in baseball that no matter what happens, no matter if you get your pitch, you don't swing. Okay? So if you're going to give me a ball that's my pitch, it's in my sweet spot, that I terrorize every time it comes at me, I can't swing, I can't score, I can't potentially get a hit, I can't hit a home run. Why? Because of these idiotic unwritten rules in baseball. When Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day had that little beef via a Big Ten conference call with the coaches were on, Ryan Day said, "Hey, I want to hang 100 on them." Well, the Ryan Day comment didn't come on the conference call. Jim Harbaugh's comment came on the conference call. But when Ryan Day clapped back, he said, "I want to hang 100 on them." Well, next time they played Ohio State, Michigan. Nobody complained. We love that. We love to see that. We love that fierceness. We love that type of competitive nature. People hate Bill Belichick for, quote-unquote, running up the score. Nick Saban, quote-unquote, for running up the score. And Nick Saban's defense, I'm on Nick Saban's side. Hey, you were both on the field together. If you can't stop me, that's not my problem. I have a job to score points and to stop you from scoring points. That's my job, to put my team in the best situation to do that very thing. Bill Belichick, I remember one game, I think it was last year, against the Dolphins. You know, that team that was tanking. Yeah, tanking. They were trying to tank for Tua, and it really didn't go out very well. Well, they were tanking last year. And then I think it was game 1. It was like 50-something to like 10 or less than 10. And people were saying, "Oh, Bill, stop being so harsh. What are you doing?" Bill's like, "Look, I have professionals. They have professionals. Professional players, professional coaches, and everyone in the organization is a professional. Why don't we just treat pros like pros and stop trying to baby them and let them, well, take this beating if a pro can't stop a pro? That's basically what happened. And in the Fernando Tatis Jr. situation, it's not just baseball, it's other sports. But in baseball, the unwritten rules seem to get magnified because people like to do that stuff with baseball. Look, y'all, stop being soft. Stop being crazy. I know we live in an age where people are really, really soft right now. Let the boys play. If you're pros, if you're high schoolers, if you're college players, and for some reason the opposition can't stop you, hey, running up the score ain't bad. Ain't gonna hurt nobody. It's gonna put some hair on their chest and tell them to say, look, come better with it next time. Because that's what needs to happen. None of this babying and coddling, none of that stuff. Stop your whining. Stop your complaining. Let the boys play. And if pros can't stop pros, that's the pros that can't stop them's problem. Baseball, it's great. Fernando Tatis Jr., what you did, buddy, keep on going. Do it again. I am here for these moments in sports. Let's go ahead and take a trip to Orlando, the NBA bubble, because the NBA playoffs, they're so much fun to watch right now, and it looks a little bit different than they have over the past few years. One thing we have grown accustomed to as basketball fans, as sports fans that follow the NBA, is being able to predict before the season who will be in the NBA Finals, who will win the championship. It's almost been a foregone conclusion that LeBron James, since the 2011 season, minus that 1 year he did make the playoffs, that his team would be in the NBA Finals and have a shot to win the title. 2011. The super team of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh was put together. In the 4 years they played together, they were in the finals all 4 years. They went 2-2 in those series. Go on a little bit later. We all had a good belief that the Warriors would be in the NBA Finals at some point. Now, maybe in 2015, you would have said, yep, Jay, I knew before the season that they would be in the finals. Or I knew shortly after the All-Star break, they would be in the finals and they would win. Okay, cool. That's you. But a lot of people you know and you can look at and say, yeah, that's really what's going to happen. Once again, LeBron goes from Miami to Cleveland. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love. Yes, we all had a good belief that at some point they would be in the finals because that's too much talent to not have at least one ring together. Well, they only got one ring, but they did go to the finals 4 straight seasons. So we have gotten so used to being able to predict what happens, what's going to happen in the finals, who's going to be in the NBA Finals, a lot of times before the season even starts, that what we saw last year and what we're seeing this year is so much fun. Last year, the Warriors went back to the NBA Finals. I believe it was 5 straight. Steve Kerr and the Warriors went to the finals, ended up losing in 6 games to the Raptors with new head coach Nick Nurse. Very similar to the way that the Warriors were put together and how they got their championship, the first of their many in recent years when Steve Kerr took over for Mark Jackson. Next thing you know, the Warriors went on a run of going to the finals, making finals appearances, and winning NBA championships. Nick Nurse took over for Dwayne Casey, who Dwayne Casey, might I remind you, had just won NBA Coach of the Year. Nick Nurse comes in, wins the NBA championship, and it sure seems like, guys, after what we have seen so far, not just in the seeding games, but also what we have seen in the playoffs as well, they are primed and ready to make a deep playoff run and to win another NBA championship. I mean, this team is just rolling on all cylinders, and they are so much fun to watch. But before the season, a lot of people were saying, because I was not in this conversation, a lot of people were saying that the Lakers, with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they were going to be in the finals no matter what. No questions asked. You ask me the question, I'm not going to hesitate. That's what's going to happen. Well, guys, what I am seeing is that we have some competition right now in the NBA playoffs. A lot of competition. And we saw it yesterday with Luka Doncic just doing what Luka does against the Clippers, who the Clippers were all season long, my favorite, my prediction to be in the NBA Finals. and to win the championship. Kawhi Leonard gets another one. Everyone's talking about LeBron James getting a championship with a third team. That'd be amazing. Hey guys, Kawhi could do the same thing. And y'all sleep on him just like he sleeps on y'all. I don't want to talk to y'all. You saw that man walk past the camera, looking down at the iPad with a what note when there weren't any apps up. I mean, all you saw were the apps just laid out on the home screen, not want to talk, not doing anything with it, just saying, look, I'm going to look down. I don't want to socialize. I don't want to look at y'all. And that's what Kawhi did. So yeah, Kawhi can do the same thing. Let's not forget about that. I don't get sucked into those conversations. To me, sometimes those are idiotic. Those are crazy. Those are he was just trying to stir up storylines, and there's plenty of storylines to talk about with things that happen on the court every single day. Let's not forget, Kawhi can do something LeBron can do as well. Yeah, they're both great players, and great players do great, amazing things that nobody ever thinks about. But we have Luka. We have the Mavericks. I say Luka because even though Kristaps Porzingis is there, Kristaps was not there towards the end of the game, and well, Luka did what Luka needed to do to win the championship. We see the Lakers in a Laker team that, well, going into it, we said they're going to be great. They're not going to see any opposition. And even though they're up in the series 2-1 over the Portland Trailblazers, we're finding they're having to work a whole lot harder than anticipated to be able to even have a shot to win these games. I mean, they won that game. They won the game on Saturday night, 116-108. And you would think with Anthony Davis, LeBron James, with the way that they played, they would win that game by 20. That's not the case. Yes, Portland is not the better team. I know a lot of you fell in love with Damian Lillard. That's David Shepard said on Thursday, the flavor of the month. Yes, guys, that's great. We all have those moments where things pull us in, suck us in. That's great. That's amazing. But one thing I will remind you, just like David Shepard did, one team has LeBron James, one team doesn't. One team has Anthony Davis, one team does not, and that's going to speak volumes in this series. The later we go into this series to get closer to finding a winner of the series to move on to the second round of the playoffs. Tonight, we're going to have some more basketball games. We had the Bucks and the Magic. Now, nobody expects the Magic to win this series. Nobody expected the Magic to win a game in this series. But what you're going to find, you will find that the Bucks, well, they may get exposed for a little bit, and that they're going to have to compete a little bit harder, a little bit more than they thought they needed to. The Rockets and the Thunder, we are all looking forward to, I'm kind of hoping that at some point we see Russell Westbrook come on the court against his old team and just do what Russell Westbrook does. Go ham on the court. Go crazy. Why? Because I think that that's what we love. That's what we may have missed for so many years in the NBA playoffs. This year is not predictable. This year isn't a year where you can go in and say, yeah, the team that I predicted, the team that I said is going to be there is going to have an easy shot, an easy road right to the NBA playoffs. NBA finals, excuse me. I remember early in my life, I believe I was 12, 13 years old right now. The 2001 Lakers, they were kind of that team. They had won the NBA Finals the year before, beating the Indiana Pacers. I had to think about that. I don't know why. The 2000 NBA Finals beat the Pacers 4-2 in that series. And then the very next year, the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, Phil Jackson, and the rest of those boys over there in LA, we all knew. And as a young kid, as a youngin', I knew looking into that series, this wasn't going to be close. And when you go, not just that series, but the series going on throughout that NBA playoffs, this ain't going to be close. These guys are too good. Shaq's too powerful. Kobe is coming into his own, like we're seeing with Luka. Luka is amazing. One thing I need to say with Luka, as great as his offensive game is, he needs to work on his defense. But once he just puts in the time, remember, he's 21. I'm not going to treat a 21-year-old like a 28-year-old vet that's been a 6, 7, 8-time All-Star. I'm not going to treat him like that. Remember, I'm going to be very, very critical of the guys that I should be very critical of. And Luka has a very good shot of being, oh my goodness, my buddies are talking about, will he be the best? Well, I mentioned this earlier as well. I'm not one with hyperbole, but it's true. Luka has a shot, y'all, to be the best European basketball player we have ever seen, best foreign-born basketball player we have ever seen in the NBA. I mean, he's right on that trajectory. He already has people asking who is better, Giannis or Luka Doncic. Go to the Twitter today at Find Me. That's going to be today's Twitter poll. Who's the better basketball player, Luka Doncic or Giannis Antetokounmpo? I think when you put your mind to it, you may be surprised and think, wow, Luka might actually have a chance to be better or have a case to be better than Giannis Antetokounmpo. But in the 0-1 Lakers playoff run, I believe they only lost one game, and that one game came in Game 1 of the NBA Finals against the 76ers. I believe Allen Iverson had 50 points, tipped over Tyronn Lue in the overtime win over there in Staples Center. Then the Lakers just ran them boys out of town, won that series in 5. I believe they won that series on the court over there in Philly. But we knew going into that, like we have so many years recently, who's going to win? Who's going to be the champion? Who's going to be the one that's going to come out on top in this particular time? Guys, this ain't that kind of year. I mean, I could go through more series. I know the series the game coming on today between the Pacers and Heat, it ain't no series. The game comes on at 6:30. They want to give them some kind of primetime notoriety and no primetime attention. I mean, I'll get off work and I'll be able to watch this game, then have an interview, and then watch the rest of the game. And I'm like, should I watch this? Should I not want to watch this? Should I want to end my night on a good note? Or do I want to just go ahead and mess up my whole night, my whole mood to watch the Pacers lose another game, not play defense, not guard the three, Nate McMillan not knowing how to make adjustments and call plays? Sorry. I need to calm down. But this is the things that I watch on the basketball screen when I'm on the television screen when I'm watching the Pacers play basketball. No adjustments, no guarding the three. You got Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, two guys that can shoot. Don't you think you would find a way to guard them? Oh, sorry, Nate. I didn't mean to step on your shoes, get in your bubble. I burst your bubble. Sorry, I didn't mean to do any of that. Sorry, no. I'm just a guy that's a host of a show watching you not be able to do things that a good coach should do. You just got a contract extension, and with you getting a contract extension, people's like, oh yeah, Nate, he deserves this. We had all these injuries. And then the very next game, or the next 3 games after that took place, after that was announced in the playoffs, what did you do? The things you've always done. Not find ways to win the series. I sure hope next season that before the season or even before the season or in the middle of the season, they find a way to get you up out the paint. Because, Pacers fans, myself, I'll speak for myself right now, not even Pacers fans. We want change. We want to find somebody else that can go out there and win. We know what the Heat are about. We want to know what the Pacers are about. I didn't expect the Pacers to win this series, but what I did expect is for them to put up a fight. I don't see it. Yeah, they came back. Yeah, JB soft. No, I'm not going to be soft for nothing. They don't deserve the soft J. They deserve the J to come out there, look them in the face, and just say, look, y'all, this ain't working. Nate, you're cool, you're a good guy, but this ain't working at all. So many years as a head coach in the NBA, one NBA series win, go back to 04, 05 for that. Remember the names Rashard Lewis and Ray Allen? Yeah, those were the stars of the team. The last team, the only team that Nate McMillan took to the NBA playoffs and actually won a series with. Let that sink in for you. That was a long time ago. But we gotta love competition. I had to get away from that. I could have been on that soapbox all day. But guys, I love this competition. I love the back and forth. I love seeing Luka Doncic and Montrezl Harrell go at it, get face to face. I love seeing Morris, and I forget which Morris this is. I love seeing Morris and Kristaps Porzingis get face to face. Even though the Mavericks are a 7 seed and Clippers are a 2 seed, we're seeing that nobody is afraid of anybody. We're seeing that even though the Lakers, who people thought they were going to be the runaway favorite to get to the NBA Finals and to win, a lot of people, not this guy, we're seeing the Lakers have to work harder, way harder, to get even one win. And then once they get a few wins and win the series, they better not sleep because they have more fights coming up. Not literal fights, but fights in the NBA playoffs. I love this. This is what I live for. This is what sports are all about. Competition. It's nice going into a game, going into a playoffs, not knowing and not hearing people on TV say, "Oh well, this game means nothing. This game means nothing. We know who's going to win. This is just a formality. We gotta get through this to get to the next." No, that ain't it. what we're finding is a lot more competition, a lot more of us not knowing what's going to happen next, and it has us like we are while playing a video game. We sit back in our chair, and then when that game gets intense, we move closer and we lean forward in our chair as we're getting intense and as we're almost ready to just lock in and say, look, I'm in my position. I'm in my seat. This game is too good for me to sit all the way back. I got to lean forward, anticipating the next move. Luka Doncic had boys leaning forward, and then they had boys running around their apartments, their homes, or neighborhoods because Luka is going wild. Don't just watch him. Watch all these games because you don't know what may happen next with the way that the competition has been for some of these series, not all, but for some of these series in this year's NBA playoffs. Before we start talking about conference realignment in college football, we have a word from Plutus Sports Analytics. Plutus Sports Analytics is a company based on minimizing the uncertainty in sports betting to help you maximize your profit. New Finland's first sports analytics team provides daily predictions for all Major League sports so you can win big. Whether you want to hit MLB picks out of the park or get a slam dunk on your NBA betting tickets, Plutus is a company of choice. Head to PlutusSportsAnalytics.com. That is PLUTUS SportsAnalytics.com. Use code JSP10 for 10% off their deadly service. Longtime college football reporter Ivan Maisel recently wrote an article on ESPN.com about why this may be the perfect time for conference realignment in college, not just college football, but collegiate sports. In the article, he talks a lot about some matchups in college football that will not take place due to the conference-only schedules. But it doesn't just go for conference-only games in college football, but this goes for any collegiate sport. Your soccer, your hockey, your track and field, whatever the sport, field hockey. Doesn't matter what sport, lacrosse. Doesn't matter what sport it is. Conference realignment would be a great idea. And I was on this wavelength a while ago, but when he put it this way, and when he put it in these words and these terms, it makes a lot of sense. He talks about how the restricted travel that has been recommended, but also the conference-only schedules in college football, those are two things that, well, they don't go together. I got 4 matchups for you. 4 of them will happen. 2 of them will happen. 2 of them will not happen. 2 of them make sense. 2 of them do not make sense in this season. These 2 teams are in the Big 12, West Virginia and Texas Tech. Think about how far it is to go from West Virginia to Texas. West Virginia plays Texas Tech. That's 1,400 miles away. Because they're in the same conference, that's A-OK. West Virginia, however, cannot play Pittsburgh, Big 12, ACC, right next to each other, 75 miles away, but they can't play. Colorado can play Washington, same conference, can play. 1,300 miles away in distance from them, but Colorado can't play its own rival in its same state, Colorado State, with 100 miles away. Now, we all remember when the Big Ten recently came out and said there would not be any collegiate sports during the fall sports season. Pac-12, no sports until 2021. We all heard the uproar, the news from Nebraska saying, we're going to play football, we're going to find a way to play football. Well, what maybe they forgot, maybe they didn't, I'm sure they knew about it, but maybe they forgot. About a decade ago, Nebraska left the Big 12 to join the Big 10, and they were gladly doing it. It wasn't like they were forced out. They, with a smile on their faces, left the Big 12, a conference they had been a part of since 1928, a conference that, I might add you, that they had rich history with, rivalry games, and everything that goes along with that, to join the Big 10. Now, we think about Nebraska. Does it really make sense for Nebraska and, let's say, Ohio State to be in the same conference when there's so much travel in between the two states? Not really. Conferences are supposed to be a regional thing. Nebraska, and let's go to Rutgers. Does that make sense to where those 2 teams are in the same conference? No, they're supposed to be regional structure. Guys, it doesn't make sense at all. And Ivan Maisel goes even further. You're talking about how Alabama's and how it's supposed to help with recruiting, how it's supposed to help you stretch your footprint to get that recruit in another place. But what he also pinpoints, the big schools will get the best talent no matter where they are. If you got to go overseas to Europe, if you got to go to Hawaii to get you a defensive tackle, if you have to go to Canada to get a kicker or Australia to get a kicker, you will find a guy. I don't know why I said Canada for kicker. I meant to say Australia. But you will find a guy that you want at that particular time. Alabama's running back is from Cali. Oregon's offensive tackle, Penei Sewell, I hope I said his name right, is from Utah. He plays at Oregon. Oklahoma State's running back is from Canada. The top talent will get the top players at any given time. Now, I went back to 1990. Because we all talk about the independence in football and how they shouldn't be independent. People get on Notre Dame for being an independent and how they should be a part of a conference. Well, something that I did in my research recently, Notre Dame at one point was going to join the Big Ten. Newsflash, even though they had that NBC contract, which I believe they got in 1990 or 1991. I forget the exact year. I did not write that down. Normally, as you know, I don't write notes down. But for this particular part of the show, I had to write notes down because I couldn't remember everything that I read. And I had to write it down, read it off to you, and things like that. So I forget if it was 1990 or 1991 when Notre Dame got that NBC contract. But I know it was around that time period, shortly after winning the Natty in 88. And then right around that same time when the Bowl Coalition, when we started having these bowl games to help decide who the national champion was going to be. Before that, it was just voted on. It was picked by the voters. So you can have two undefeated teams not playing a national championship game, and lo and behold, a panel of writers would figure out who the national champion is. Weird way to figure out who a champion is, but that's the way the cookie crumbled at that particular time. But Notre Dame was going to join the Big Ten out in the mid-90s. I want to say it was 93, 94, or 95. One of the three. Once again, when they started to figure out and find a way to put bowls games together to figure out who a national champion was going to be, a lot of these schools went from being an independent to being in a conference to have a better shot at winning the national championship. Weird to think about now that there was at one time 25 schools in 1990 that were independents, and I'll read some of them off to you in a little bit, but that's kind of the climate of back then and how things have drastically changed now. So Notre Dame wanted to be in the Big Ten. Michigan said no. So for people like myself that say it makes more sense for Notre Dame to be in the Big Ten, well, when one of your biggest rivals says no, get up out the paint, we don't want you, and you join the conference gets blocked, it's going to be really, really hard for you to say yes to fall to the pressure to do that, and then also say, well, yeah, we need to stop being independent and go ahead and join a conference that once blocked us back in the early to mid 90s. 1990. 25 teams were independent. Some of them, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I remember that. Some of them, you'll be scratching your head. I won't read all 25, but you'll get the gist about how things have drastically changed in college football. These are some of the teams that were independents that weren't a part of a conference in college football right before the Bowl Coalition went into place. Boston College, Akron, Army, Cincinnati, Louisiana Tech, Louisville, here's some you know, Notre Dame, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Temple, Tulane, Miami, Memphis, West Virginia, Virginia Tech. I mean, at one time, this was the nature of college football. You had your long-standing conferences. You had those conferences that had started to form and that had strong tradition. And then as soon as the Bowl Coalition started and there was a group of people that said, well, we're going to have these three bowls, and I believe it was the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. Those are the three bowls, which ended up being three of the four BCS bowls. They said, well, whoever we'll find a national champion amongst these bowls. We'll put together a game that's going to be the national championship game, and the winner of that game will be the national champion. Notice the Rose Bowl, which was the Pac-12 champ, the Big Ten champ, I think it was Pac-10 at that time. They were not a part of this grouping, so people were saying this makes no sense. In 1998, the first year of the BCS era, when you had the BCS poll and the BCS national championship game, there were only 8 teams that were independents. Drastic, going from 1990 when they were 25 to 8 in 1998. Arkansas State, Louisiana, Louisiana Tech, Louisiana Monroe, Navy, Notre Dame, UAB, and UCF. Today, there's only 7. Army, BYU, Liberty, New Mexico State, Notre Dame, UConn, and UMass. UConn will actually go back to a conference pretty soon, I believe. This is one of those years they have to be an independent because of transfer from conferences and things of that nature. But if you look at the current structure of conferences in college football, guys, it doesn't make sense. There is no reason at all for Missouri to be in the SEC. There is no reason for Texas A&M to be in the SEC. There is no reason at all for West Virginia to be in the Big 12. I am not the biggest fan of Penn State being in the Big 10 due to geographic regions and how Penn State's not really a part of the Midwest, but I can understand it. But Rutgers, Nebraska, go back to the Big 12. I'm all for it. You'll be better off for it. I know you left. Your fault, but it'll make a whole lot more sense for you to go back there. Rutgers, get about the paint, bro. It all happened. All this kind of started to happen when the Big East said they would stop sponsoring football. The conference really, as a whole, said no. There was an old Big East in basketball folded. Now we have a new Big East in basketball. And when you look at conference structure and realignment, this may be the perfect time to go back to the true meaning of what conferences are for. Regional aspect, regional nature. You can have yours in the northeast part of the country, be one conference, the Big East. You can have your SEC be what it is and keep the same tradition. You can have the Big 12, the South, another part of the South. You can have your Midwest. You can have your Pacific. You can have all of those in place and have it make a lot of sense. The way, even if you didn't go to what's going on right now in the current climate of the U.S. of A. And I say U.S. of A because a lot of countries are not in a big mess like the U.S. is. I have my own thoughts on that. That's a conversation for another day. But conferences right now, currently put together, they're great. I love the Penn State, Ohio State, the Penn State, Michigan. I love what Penn State brings to the Big Ten. But when you look at the meaning and the actuality and the application of what is going on with conferences, this may be the best time to put things back the way that they were supposed to be. Regional conferences. Big 12, get your schools. Big 10, get your schools. I understand trying to stretch your footprint. But even a squad like Indiana University, most people listening to this don't care about them because they're not good at football. But what you're going to find is that when they want to find players, you'll find guys from the deep south in Florida that like what Tom Allen is doing, and they'll leave that great weather down there in Florida to come up to the crazy cold weather up here in Indiana to enjoy college football, because even the mediocre schools, they can go places to get guys now that they couldn't go before. Conferences are great, but make it make sense. Right now, the current structure of them with teams being stretched all over the country, guys, it don't make no sense. You know what else don't make no sense? Earl Thomas. This year that he's had, the structure that he's had in his life, it's been crazy, it's been wild, doesn't make much sense. There's been some chaos in his life. We all heard about what happened with him and his girlfriend. Maybe it was his wife. I forget the structure of their relationship. Structure seems to be the word of the past 10 to 12 minutes. I didn't realize that until I kept saying the word structure. That time it was on purpose. But it seems like chaos just follows Earl Thomas. I don't know why. We all know back in 2019 when he flipped off Pete Carroll as he was being carted off the field, and he flipped him off because he thought that Pete Carroll, when he went out on the field to look at Earl Thomas and Earl Thomas was hurt, he thought that Pete Carroll was a little insensitive, that he did not care, so he gave him the bird. Okay, cool. If that's how you want to express your feelings to the guy that's the head coach of your team, great. Lo and behold, what happened? It seemed like he was going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs offered him a 1-year, $12 million deal. Yeah, more notes, guys. This is very weird for Jay to write notes down and to utilize them during the show. What is here? And sorry, the Pete Carroll thing was September 30th of 2018. March 12th of 2019, what we thought was going to be his new team, the Chiefs and Earl Thomas agreed to a 1-year, $12 million contract. The very next day, the Ravens offered a 4-year, $55 million contract, the biggest contract the franchise had offered a non-quarterback ever in the history of the franchise, and Earl Thomas says he had to hop on that opportunity. Ravens defense, different than the Seahawks defense. Earl Thomas came out and said, well, this defense is more complex than what I'm used to over there in Seattle. Why? Well, if you know defenses, the Seahawks are known for running a cover 3 defense. It was good for him. It was great for them. It worked for him. But as one man says here in Indianapolis, used to be a head coach, his name, coach for the Colts. It slips my memory right now. It'll come back to me eventually. But he calls the cover 3 defense a high school defense. And to have a professional football player say that going from that defense in Seattle was easier and that going to Baltimore defense is more complex, it kind of proves the narrative that there's a good chance that the cover 3 defense is literally, quote unquote, a high school defense. It is the same defense my high school ran in football. When I was in high school, we ran a 4-4. We didn't have to go up against these guys that are running 3 and 4 wide sets on defense. No, if we did, we changed the defense and would sometimes go man because you needed your corners to go man to man against those guys instead of running the soft zone that the cover 3 can be. Not to go crazy, but there's a good reason why people get on Richard Sherman. Not saying he's not great at what he does, but when you put him in different systems, there may be a reason, an idea that maybe Richard Sherman isn't all that he is dished up to be. Not sure why Richard Sherman came up. I know he was on that Seahawks team, but we all talked about how Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, they didn't really rotate. They stayed in their own position, didn't go on different sides of the field. Well, Richard Sherman mainly because he's the corner. And we all see that, well, maybe it's because the defensive structure was made to be simplified for these guys so they didn't get out of line. But Earl Thomas, man, the whole situation with the defense, and then earlier this year, he had a situation with his girlfriend or his wife. He left her. I think there was a dispute. He left. I think it was his brother or brother-in-law, one of the two. This story has so many angles, so many twists, so many turns. I forget all the details, but what I would tell you is he left his Snapchat notifications on. His girlfriend or wife, the female in his life, left him, checked his Snapchat notifications, went to the home where he was at, where he was cheating on his girl with someone in his family, and she brought some of her girlfriends, some of her female friends. I remember, I gotta say things properly. I say girlfriends to my friends, and I'm thinking about the best friends of a female, not someone they may possibly be dating. But today's climate, I have to be specific. But Earl Thomas did all that stuff, got in trouble, and actually at that time, when the domestic dispute that was going on and how it hit TMZ and how it was an uproar around sports, I thought maybe the Ravens say, bye, bruh, get up out of here. I know what you did wasn't the same thing at the same level as Ray Rice's. I forget if Earl Thomas hit the female or not during that time, during that dispute. But if he did, well, it is a Ray Rice situation. I forget the details of it, but what I will tell you is this. I thought the Ravens were going to say bye to Earl Thomas at that point. That Earl Thomas and what he had done was going to be enough to get him off the paint, get him away, and to get Earl Thomas away from that franchise because they wanted to distance themselves from all of that nonsense. What we found is that's not the case. Earlier this week, or I think it was maybe Friday or Saturday at practice, I believe he got cut on Saturday. No, I think it was Friday at practice. I believe he got cut on Saturday. Earl Thomas in practice in training camp missed the coverage. He decided to blitz instead of guard his man. His man scored. Mark Andrews in the back of the end zone. And lo and behold, Chuck Clark, a fellow safety, and Earl Thomas got into it. And we all know, we all have these issues. We all have been there. I've been in 2 days. You get heated. You get upset. You get in arguments. I mean, these happen. I have called guys out during 2 days as well in football. I mean, it happens to the best of us. It's normal. But I think what was going on with the Ravens was they were possibly trying to find a way to get Earl Thomas off the team. That he was already on a short leash. He had his last straw. And when Chuck Clark and Earl Thomas got into it, lo and behold, some pushing, some shoving. Earl Thomas pushed Mr. Clark, and the rest is history. That was kind of the last thing. I don't know if they gave him an ultimatum, one more thing, and if you do one more thing, one more hiccup, and you're gone. I don't know. But what I will tell you is Earl Thomas was already on a short leash. Earl Thomas was already on a downward trajectory, and this is what happens. If you don't change your behavior, if you don't change who you are, you may be cut from a team. And right now, this may not be the time to be cut, but when you are Earl Thomas and you bring what he can bring to the field, there's a good shot you will get picked up. I'm not saying he won't play. I think he'll play. But, bro, come on, man. from the situation with Pete Carroll to the situation with the female, with your girl, forget if it was your girlfriend or your wife, fiance, one of the three, I forget exactly which one it was. But you should know, of all people, you've been around long enough to know that when you are under scrutiny, when you're in hot water, you should know not to mess up, even if it's potentially losing your cool because you messed up on a play in training camp. Don't retaliate. Say some words, do something, push somebody maybe, but you can't throw no punches, bruh. Throwing punches, that stuff gets you, y'all know my phrase, up, out the paint, and that's exactly what happened to Earl Thomas. Thank you for listening to the episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. If you're not on Twitter and you would love to connect with the podcast, send your emails to jstevenspod@gmail.com. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for a new podcast to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 126 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.